Good evening, YouTube. All right, tonight I got my special guest helper here, Macy Masterson, wants to help me cook. We are going to make something I would like to call the four meat Italian treat or baked sausage and peppers. It's basically going to be sausage, peppers, onion. I like to throw in some ground beef, some pepperoni. Cover it all in mozzarella cheese, bake it in the oven. It is delicious. It's keto friendly. I found the recipe on a Facebook group for keto recipes and progress stories on how people do with their keto. I thought the recipe sounded great. I've adapted it a little bit for my own personal taste. So I'm gonna take you all along with me while I cook, and I'll be sure to post my version of the recipe in the descriptions. But pretty much we got a red pepper, yellow pepper, got a green pepper, got a nice big Vidalia onion, gonna use a little garlic, salt, some crushed red pepper, big pack of mozzarella cheese, got pepperoni, got some fire roasted diced garlic tomatoes, gonna use a little olive oil, got the squeezed garlic. The recipe calls for cloves of garlic, but this squeezed stuff is so convenient. Secret ingredient for everything we cook around here, Zap Pack from Little Caesars. No joke, this has got to be the best spice you can add to anything. We love it. The kids love it. Everybody loves it. Pick it up at Little Caesars. They'll give you free little Terra open packets when you buy pizza, or if you can find a Little Caesars that actually sells containers of it. We've got one around here and we're buying this stuff all the time. Fantastic. Lastly, I've got, or not quite lastly, we got Rao's homemade marinara sauce. The original recipe doesn't call for using any sauce, but I like to add a little bit, give it more of a lasagna feel than just peppers and sausage. Finally, I've got two Italian sausages, two hot Italian sausages, and about a pound of ground beef. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch over the camera and start cooking on the stove and show the process we got going on here. All right, so first step, I've got my hot Italian sausages, my regular Italian sausages cooking in one pan, and I got about a pound of ground beef gonna cook over here in another pan. Then the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dice up my peppers and onions and pepperoni and get all that ready to go as well. Alright, so the last time I made this, I just used some pepperoni like you'd find on a pizza. This time I decided to get links of it and try to dice it up into little chunks. I thought that it might taste a little better. Having the big wide flat ones like on a pizza was a little odd texture inside the meal when it was all done. Alright, just getting everything nice and browned up and warmed up over here. So I got my pepperonis diced up. Next thing, I'm going to dice up my peppers and onions so that I can saute those a little bit. Not a little bit, actually I want them sauteed a lot. I don't like it when my vegetables are hard inside of a meal. Okay, next thing I'm going to dice up my peppers and onion. Okay, so personally I like to dice up my peppers and onions really thin because when I saute them, I like to get it really well cooked. I don't care for vegetables when they're crunchy inside my food. I like them to be very well cooked so they're nice and soft. So I find that the thinner you cut them, the easier they are to cook up, and then the softer they'll get in a shorter amount of time without burning. All right, my ground beef is just about browned up. Sausage is all set. I got my pepperonis diced up, and I've got all my peppers and onions diced up. So I'm gonna take the sausages and I'm gonna put them on a plate to dice them up, and I'm gonna keep all that that good grease from the sausage in the pan here, because that'll taste really good to saute the peppers and onions in. And I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil to it as well, just to give it a bit more oil there for the sauteing purposes. All right, I got a little olive oil in there, got the sausage grease that came out of the sausages in there. So I'm gonna let these steam up real nice, get those onions so they're caramelized. Meanwhile, I'm gonna dice up these sausages. I'm gonna use some paper towel to soak up the fat from the ground beef. And then I'm gonna put the sausages in with the ground beef and add the pepperoni and let all that kind of marinate together as well while the sausage or the peppers and onions saute themselves. Then it'll be time to start assembling things and putting them into a baking dish. So I can go ahead and probably preheat my oven to get it nice and warmed up. Okay, so we got the sauce or the peppers and onions sauteing. Like I said, I like to really let them cook quite a bit till the onions kind of turn translucent. I like vegetables in my food to be nice and soft. I don't like it if they're crunchy, so I really cook them really good. When the onions start to become kind of clear, that's when it's done to me. Get a little bit caramelized. I've got the ground beef, the sausages, and the pepperoni all mixing together in this pan. So now I've got a can of fire roasted diced garlic tomatoes. I'm gonna add that to the meat and stir it in and just kind of let that marinate together. Then I'm going to add, the original recipe calls for 8 cloves of garlic sliced thinly. I don't really feel like messing with cloves of garlic, so I've got the squeezed garlic. And I've already got garlic in the tomatoes, so I'm going to add some more. I'm going to put this in with the veggies, so I'll let it saute in there. Who doesn't like garlic? So we'll go ahead and use quite a bit. The original recipe calls for a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. I'll just put a couple shakes in there rather than find a 1/4 teaspoon measuring cup. Got a new container here. I got to break the seal on it. Give that a couple shakes of red pepper. I don't want to overdo it. And then, like I was saying, Zap Pack. So the original recipe calls for some Italian seasoning, a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. I'm just going to use Zap Pack. It's got a little bit of everything. a blend of special spices to accent your pizza. I'll tell you what, it accents everything. This stuff is delicious. So I'm going to add that in. And then lastly, original recipe calls for a half a teaspoon of kosher salt. I'm just going to use a little bit of garlic salt because again, who doesn't love garlic? And rather than find and measure out a half a teaspoon, I'm just going to sprinkle some in. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep stirring all this stuff. Let the meat and the tomatoes kind of stew together. Then in a little bit, I'm going to add just a little bit of marinara sauce. I don't want to go overboard with it. It's got carbs in it. Most of this shouldn't have too much in the way of carbs. But the marinara sauce does have a little bit. So I don't want to overdo it with that. It's more to give it a little bit of moisture and make it kind of like a lasagna. Okay, the meat's been steaming with the tomatoes for a little while, so I'm going to add in a little bit of the Rouse homemade. I bought the Arrabbiata spicy marinara sauce. The carbs on that, it's 6 grams of carbs, but it's got a little bit of fiber. So really, a half a cup, it's not much to speak of in the way of carbs. I'm going to probably put about a cup in there, maybe a little bit more, so maybe about half the jar, I suppose. Just to give it a little bit of moisture, make it more like a lasagna instead of just the peppers and just the meat. All right, got that in there. We're going to stir it up. The vegetables are almost done. Then we're going to end up putting it in a pie pan and stick it in the oven. I've got my oven preheated to 350, so we're almost ready to wrap this up. Okay, the onions have turned clear to even a little bit brown, which is good. So everything is nice and soft now. Peppers and onions, everything's real sauteed. The garlic's in there, olive oil. I've got all the meat kind of bubbling here. Got the little bit of marinara sauce in there, pepperoni, sausage, ground beef. This is delicious. The smell coming off of this is like heaven. All right, we got a deep dish, 9-inch baking pan here. So we're gonna layer in the peppers and onions on the bottom, then put the meat mixture on the top of that, and finally cover the whole thing in cheese. Okay, I'm using a slotted spatula here, trying to let a little bit of the oil drain out. We don't want to get too much oil in there. So the idea is we're going to put the peppers and onions in this pan. Turn my heat off. And we're going to layer this. We're going to make a layer of peppers and onions. Put the meat on top of it, cover the whole thing with cheese, and then bake it in the oven. Okay, you want to flatten that out. Make yourself a nice layer of veggies. Just think of it almost like the crust on a pizza. Okay, next thing we're going to put this meat and sauce mixture, spread it out over top of the peppers. Okay, we got all the peppers and onions in the bottom of the pan, got them packed down, put the meat mixture with the sauce on top of it. It's a pretty thick pan and it's actually rising up over top of it. It's gonna be quite a meal. Original recipe calls for 8 ounces of mozzarella cheese. I love cheese. 8 ounces isn't anywhere near enough for my taste. So I'm gonna cover this whole thing in cheese and we're gonna pop it in the oven. Okay, got the cheese on. It's ready to slide it out into the oven. Instructions call for the oven to be preheated to 375. I actually only did it to 350, so I better turn that up. I'm gonna put it in there for, it says 20 minutes or until the cheese starts browning. I got a lot of cheese on here, so it might need to be a little more than 20 minutes. We'll keep an eye on that. All right, time to clean up the kitchen while we're waiting for that to cook. Okay, just pulled it out of the oven. It smells delicious. I gotta let it cool off for probably 8 minutes or so before it'll be ready to cut up and take a slice of it and eat it. But gotta tell you, of all the things I've made, keto, this is by far the favorite one. It's becoming a staple for me. I love this. Even if you're not a keto eater, this is still just an amazing, delicious, nutritious meal to have. I mean, the sausage isn't terribly nutritious, but at least there's some vegetables in it. There we have it. Got the cheese all melted and baked on. It's cooling down. When it cools off just enough, I'm gonna slice it up, probably about 6 slices, and put it on a plate. It's gonna be delicious. Okay, so that's the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed watching and enjoy the recipe. I'm gonna put my version of the recipe down in the description. If you like the content, please give a like, subscribe, a comment. Sure appreciate you watching. Thanks a lot and enjoy.
People are gonna be grossed out that you're cooking with dog hair on your hands.
That just got recorded. I hope it shows up in the video. I hope that was loud enough.